Yo. This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is bold and the newscasters are bolder, with Jeff Weber
and Kris Aman, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson.
First, the local headlines.
Tucson City Council is working on a law that would make texting while driving a finable offense. A similar law began last week in nearby Marana. If the law passes, it would mean officers cannot pull drivers over for texting and driving, but could add the offense to another violation, such as speeding. While the law has support among the council, some think it doesn't go far enough. TPD Lieutenant John Strader thinks the violation should be a primary offense so that officers can pull drivers over for texting and driving. He thinks without this penalty, distracted drivers are a threat to other citizens on Tucson roadways. But Council Member Regina Romero says that the city needs more time, and for now, a secondary offense can be passed quickly. Council Member Paul Cunningham is in favor of making texting and driving a primary offense. He supports waiting 6 months until they can pass a bill that has teeth. Cunningham delivered these statements via Snapchat as he cruised down I-10.
The Counter Narcotics Alliance is reporting that about 5,000 counterfeit pills were taken off Tucson streets in 2016. Captain John Levitt of the CNA says that the confiscated drugs were made illegally in Arizona using the potent opiate fentanyl, which is 100 times stronger than heroin. Levitt says that while the seizure of thousands of pills is good news, the group is more interested in helping addicts than arresting drug users. Tucson Police Department is one of 4 Arizona departments that are trained to use Narcan, the nasal spray that can revive those who overdose on opiates. Officers began carrying Narcan in November of 2015 and used it for the first time on December 6th of that year. Levitt says that Narcan should be present in busy areas of Tucson, such as near the university and 4th Avenue, where people commonly mix opiates and alcohol. While Narcan is currently only available with a prescription, Levitt hopes that Congress will allow the spray to be obtained over the counter and kept at businesses and homes.
Well, it's official. Tombstone, Arizona will gain the title of America's Second Amendment City. Tombstone Mayor Dusty Escapule signed the proclamation yesterday, which honors the amendment that gives Americans legal access to firearms. It makes sense for a city like Tombstone, whose history surrounds the possession of guns. Tombstone is the only city in America that has made such a proclamation. The idea was drummed up by local business owners who were likely hoping to use it as a branding move to draw more tourists to the infamous city. And yet local businessman Gordon Anderson says that he often gets flack from anti-gun activists. He hopes the proclamation will secure Tombstone's place as a gun-friendly area. Tombstone will still use its traditional slogan, "The town too tough to die," but will now add, "unless you get shot," to the slogan.
A Tucson police officer has received a letter from President Obama after his wife wrote to the president about her hubby. The letter, Sergeant Matthew Falk said, quote, "Law enforcement officials represent the best of our nation and they deserve the best from it." Falk's wife, Sarah, had written to the president about her husband's love of protecting his community, but didn't expect a reply. She told Obama that Falk especially appreciates TPD's efforts towards community engagement and is happy to be able to strengthen this relationship. Falk shared his reply letter from the president to the force, saying that he didn't want attention, but simply wanted to show how much police officers are supported in the community. The following day, he received another letter from President-elect Donald Trump, who heard about Obama's letter. Trump's message said that Obama's letter was fake news and he was just sucking up to law enforcement because he's mad that he lost. Trump ended the letter by asking Falk how he would start building a wall if it were up to him.
In light of Doug Ducey's announcement this week about new funding for Arizona school systems, it looks like it might finally be a good time to be a student in the state. Now, Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild is looking to make education that much better by pushing arts in Tucson schools. Rothschild announced the Great Start program on Wednesday, which would be an after-school program focusing on the arts. The program would allow students to attend various museums around the city. Tickets and passes have been donated by nonprofit organizations in the area to support the program. Additionally, Rothschild says that every school will be tasked with coming up with an incentive program to figure out how to distribute the passes. He said the idea for the program came from the realization that schools are being forced to cut out their music and art programs due to budget shortfalls. Museums participating in the program include the Arizona Historical Society, the Tucson Children's Museum, Reed Park Zoo, Tucson Museum of Art, Tucson Symphony Orchestra, and the Mocha Museum.
With all the good economic news coming out of Tucson lately, it was only a matter of time until we got knocked off our pedestal. A new report by Wallet Hub found that Tucson is the least recession-recovered large city in the U.S. Wallet Hub looked at 500 cities in the U.S. and used various measures such as home price appreciation, ratio of part-time to full-time jobs, foreclosure rates, labor force participation, and poverty rates. Needless to say, Tucson didn't do so well. The top 5 cities were all in Texas, with Midland, Texas, George W. Bush's old stomping grounds, coming out on top. Austin, Texas took the honors for the highest ranking large city and stood at number 8 overall. Now in national and international news.
Senate Republicans took the first step to repeal Obamacare late last night. In a 51-48 vote, the Senate approved a budget blueprint that allows them to repeal the law without the threat of filibuster. This approved a Senate move called reconciliation, where the House and Senate will need to come up with a repeal bill by January 27th or the agreement expires. Among Senate Republicans, all except for one voted in favor of the measure. The one exception was Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who says that Republicans should have a replacement ready before they begin a full repeal. The House plans to vote on a similar measure on Friday, though some House Republicans are uncomfortable with rushing the vote. The Senate also rejected a Democratic amendment that would allow Americans to buy pharmaceutical drugs from Canada, protect rural hospitals, and ensure coverage for people with existing conditions. Democrats were deeply unhappy with the results and staged an unusual protest on the Senate floor. In unison, the Democrats turned around and pointed their plumage to the ceiling, a reverse of an ancient senatorial mating ritual. Wednesday night's vote was also unusual because the Senate used a system where members vote on a number of amendments with just one vote, a process called vote-a-rama. Vote-a-rama ends with the wheel of voting, where the Speaker of the House is blindfolded and spun around as he chants, "Jabada, jabada, jabada," until he lands on a lucky senator who gets to eat the ceremonial Senate pie. The vote finished around 1:30 a.m., which some criticized as being so late in order to fly under the radar of media outlets. But Senate Republicans said that they delayed the vote until night because Ted Cruz can't go outside in daylight.
Confirmation hearings began yesterday for incoming Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. The ExxonMobil CEO was subjected to some harsh scrutiny, especially by Senator Marco Rubio, who is apparently a fan of Shell. Rubio questioned Tillerson hard on subjects of foreign policy, claiming that the U.S. has a bad habit of supporting dictators when it benefited their interests. He said that this hypocritical attitude needed to stop, and the Secretary of State needed to be somebody who would stand up to the bad guys. But it appeared that Tillerson couldn't even stand up to Rubio, as Tillerson avoided answering questions, nearly every question. He neglected to answer a question about the Philippines President Duterte, who's bragged about the killings of drug dealers in his country. Rubio asked Tillerson if he thought this was an appropriate response, and Tillerson said that he would need to study the subject more. Rubio then moved on to the issue of Russia and asked Tillerson if he thought Vladimir Putin had committed war crimes in Syria, Crimea, and the Ukraine. Again, Tillerson said he needed to study the subject more. Clearly, Tillerson has a lot of studying to do. Rubio ended his questioning by asking about relations with Mexico. He asked if Tillerson supports Trump's policies of erecting a wall on the border and if he believes that Mexicans were sending drug dealers and murderers across the border, as Trump has claimed. Here, Tillerson actually answered the question, and he surprised the room by pulling away from Trump's policies. He said that Mexico is an important trading partner with the U.S. and that an antagonistic attitude wasn't helpful. We'll check back in a few months to see how Tillerson's studies are going and if he's found enough evidence to support the opinion that Hitler was indeed a bad leader. We'll see.
NBC News reports that Chelsea Manning is on the short list to receive a commutation on her 35-year sentence. Manning was sentenced to prison after she leaked documents and video footage to WikiLeaks, who then ran the material on their website. At the time, Chelsea was known as Bradley Manning, who served in the U.S. military. Human rights organizations have criticized the treatment of Manning, claiming that she has very little contact with other people, which influenced her to try to commit suicide twice while in prison. Manning also went on a hunger strike soon after being sentenced in order to receive a gender reassignment surgery. She submitted a request for clemency from President Obama 2 months ago, but still hasn't heard a response. Edward Snowden, another leaker who was exiled in Russia, tweeted his support for Manning's release, telling Obama that, quote, "If you grant only one act of clemency as you exit the White House, please free Chelsea Manning. You alone can save her life." 4 former and current military officers told NBC that they think Manning's sentence was extreme and that her leaks paled in comparison to Snowden's. Manning's sentence is 10 times longer than any other recent whistleblower in the U.S. Also last month, more than 100,000 people signed an online petition seeking clemency for Manning, meeting the threshold where the White House has to respond within 60 days. In the petition, Manning's legal team mentioned that she needs better medical care for her gender dysphoria, which includes extreme stress and anxiety. While Manning is allowed to wear women's clothes and is receiving hormone therapy, a military doctor has refused to change her official gender.
Scientists have discovered the world's largest tropical peatland in the Congo, which contains 3 years' worth of the world's total emissions of carbon. A UK and Congolese team mapped the Cuvette Centrale peatlands in central Congo, which covers an area larger than England. It contains 30 billion tons of carbon, previously undiscovered, making the area the largest area of carbon-rich ecosystems in the world. The area contains about 30% of the world's tropical peatland. Peat is wetland soil made from decomposing plants, usually found in colder environments like northern Russia, Europe, and Canada. If peat further decomposes through the drying of the wetlands, then the carbon is released into the atmosphere. Scientists say that protecting the peatlands is important to stave off the effects of climate change caused by the release of carbon. The scientists estimate that the Congo area's carbon has been building up for 11,000 years. Currently, the peatland exists in a remote area that's undisturbed by developments. But scientists worry that these areas could be exploited to harvest palm oil, like what has been happening in Indonesia, the country with the largest supply of tropical peat. Indonesia has lost significant amounts over the years, both due to palm oil cultivation and to forest fires, which scientists say is an effect of climate change.
Germany saw a huge drop in migrants in 2016, mainly due to an agreement involving the UN and Turkey. More than 600,000 migrants came from the Middle East and Africa to Europe in 2015, creating a crisis on the continent. The anti-migrant sentiment contributed to the Brexit last year, along with the elections of hard-right parties across Europe. But in 2016, the number dropped to 280,000. Another reason for the drop was the closing of the Balkan route into Greece and the Balkan states, where 890,000 came through. Eventually, the migrants made it to Germany, who briefly introduced an open-door policy by Chancellor Angela Merkel. Germany got 270,000 more applications for asylum in 2016 than they did in 2015. Syrians made up 36% of the asylum claims, followed by Afghans, Iraqis, Albanians, Iranians, and Eritreans. While asylum claims are higher, many of these people arrived in Germany the year before. Germany accepted about 37% of asylum applications last year, most being from Syria. They rejected all requests from Albania, calling it a safe country, and sent back many of the migrants from Afghanistan and Iraq, calling them America's problem.
Palestinian officials are warning that moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem would violate an important peace agreement and would be met with protests in the country's mosques. Republicans announced last week that they would seek to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Israel to the disputed city of Jerusalem, symbolic in the ongoing battle between Israel and Palestine. The city was annexed in 1967 and claimed by both areas, with Palestine seeing the city as its future capital. Senior Palestinian negotiator Mohammed Shtayyeh said that the move would prompt a strong response from Palestinians and may result in an explosion of violence in the area. CNN reported on Monday that Trump officials plan to go ahead with the move, and Trump may announce it officially during his poetic and sensual inauguration speech. The suggestion of the move comes at the same time that Trump appointed hardline supporters of Israel to his cabinet. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, recently appointed as an advisor, gave money to an Israeli settlement through his family's foundation. Trump's pick for Israeli ambassador is also a hardline supporter of Israel, who gave money to settlements and compared liberal American Jews to concentration camp guards. Palestinian officials also said that the move would violate the Oslo Accords, the largest peace agreement between Israel and Palestine, which was signed back in 1995 by former President Bill Clinton. Back in 95, Congress was actually able to pass a bill to move the embassy to Jerusalem, but was never allowed because a 6-month waiver was introduced to stop the move.
A Harvard researcher is raising the alarm over a little-known industry that operates by selling private patient data. Adam Tanner, who recently wrote the book Our Bodies, Our Data about the topic, says that businesses make millions from selling information related to patients' diseases and what surgeries they've undergone. He says that patients are given no notice that their information is being sold because the companies take their names off of the data. Rather than use names, the data is labeled with a patient's number. However, Tanner says that these companies can reveal a patient's identity by cross-referencing the information, which includes age, neighborhood, and particular ailments. Tanner called out IMS Health as being the largest company to operate in this fashion, but large corporations such as General Electric and IBM Watson also have patient information businesses. Tanner says that this use of data makes federal HIPAA laws, which were designed to protect patient data, toothless, and that they may need to be re-examined. A 2011 Supreme Court case involving IMS Health upheld the legality of companies to sell patient data for profit.
And this was Jeff Weber
And Kris Aman for 5 on 20 News.
Next up, Sophie Gibson-Rush tells us what's what with music this week. Stay tuned.
I'm Sophie Gibson-Rush, here to share with you what's current or quality in local music this week. Once upon a time, when I was on tour with a band, we stopped in Olympia to play a show at a place called Obsidian. It was a cool coffee shop bar place with a respectably sized venue in the back and a very, very talented sound guy. It was one of the best shows we played, and no one came except for the sound guy. You'd be hard-pressed to find a musician who hasn't played a show for an audience of 0. Musicians are used to playing shows for a handful of people or a bar full of people who would rather you weren't there. While shows like this can be both fun and good practice, I'd venture that most musicians would choose the opposite. There are tons of options for entertainment today. Going to a show is often one of the least exciting of those options. Who wants to go see the local band play at Congress when they can go see the latest turd from Michael Bay in 3D? They can just listen to the band's first single for free on SoundCloud when they get home. The local music market is also flooded with new bands popping up like Whack-A-Mole and 4-hour quadra-billed shows. The abundance of choice tends to wash out individuality, and bands need to work twice as hard to distinguish themselves in order to gain audience members. Similarly, there's so much noise on social media that bands are getting fewer and fewer new fans through that forum. But in order to make it, or whatever we're calling it these days, bands need to consistently draw well. When you draw well or sell out, then you move on to bigger and better venues. When you get this kind of exposure, then you get the attention of musical fairy godmothers like agents or management companies and record labels. And then you get to party with the Hadids. So how do you do it? How does a band cut through the noise? How does a band move beyond an audience of its friends and moms to a genuinely attentive and loyal fan base? I've compiled some ideas from the breeding grounds of the internet and some late night conversations I've had. So here they are. First, support your scene. Go to shows, learn about everyone and everything that's out there. Become known as a loyal concert goer, and the favor will likely be returned. It's a tit for tat kind of friendship, but it's a friendship all the same. I also have a less jaded point here. If you're passionate about music, that rubs off on even the most cynical of musicians. A truly excited and inspired concert goer is hard to miss. Second, establish your identity and then make as many people see it as possible. Make a logo. Logos can be cool, I promise. Put your logo on everything you do. Insist that it's displayed on the venue's website. Yes, I think you need to put up posters. Remember what I said about social media not connecting to fans anymore? We're backsliding here. If people see your logo in enough coffee shops, they're eventually going to check you out online, especially if it's an evocative or creatively imagined logo. Use the power of the internet. When people eventually do check out your music, make sure it's easily available to them. Make a good website, Facebook, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, or all of the above. Make sure you proudly display your upcoming show dates. Make sure your music is right there, ready to listen to. And please make it pretty. Play a lot, but not too much, and spread it out. This one is tough. There are very few venues in Tucson, it's true, but I bet there are a lot more than you think. One way to gain a larger audience is to play in places and for demographics you wouldn't normally hang out with. What are the foothills up to these days? Mount Lemon? Midtown? Your most loyal supporters might come from a place you've never considered playing at. Spreading it out also solves the issue of playing too much in a small area, like downtown Tucson, which fatigues audiences. Reach out politely to local radio publications and blogs. Be nice. If you have a contact, use them, but offer them true friendship and maybe a perk to sweeten the deal. Be a gentleman about it and buy the lady a drink. Having good publicity skills is imperative. A little bit of enthusiasm and humility goes a long way. Oh, and did I say support your scene? Well, I'll say it again. Get your butt to one show once a week and we'll go from there. I feel like all of this comes to one main point, and it's this. Forget about being cool. Be passionate instead. Humans sense sincerity like a shark smells blood, and damn, we love it. This week, the Tucson Jazz Festival is starting and going through the end of January. Check out their website for the full event listing. On Friday at 1 p.m., cellist Matt Heimovitz will set up his movable feast in the lobby of Hotel Congress. On Friday evening, local saxophone virtuoso Alex Weitz will release his album at Club Congress. That's at 10 p.m. And Monday is the all-day downtown jazz fiesta. Tomorrow, Alfal, Naeem Amour, and Eric Eulogy bring their singer-songwriter groove to Al's Club. Also tomorrow at 6, the Wanda Junes are playing at Metal Arts Village. Great band and super cool venue that's worth checking out. Tucson Fringe Festival promises low-cost performance opportunities to any act who wants it. Anyone can perform if they sign up before the deadline, which this year was on September 1st, so sorry, try again next year. The acts will be spread out between Flycatcher and Congress. With no official curation, this sounds like the best kind of pandemonium. That's on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Also on the 13th is a dual album release with the Desert Beats, Lydian Osman, Golden Boots at Flycatcher. Lydian Osman and Golden Boots are Tucson classics, and this show is a great place to start practicing what I've been preaching. I'll be there on Friday evening. All right, ciao for now, Tucson. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Stay lively and friendly for me.